Que bueno, mi gente. Calix Boxing here. Good to be with everybody. Let me turn the comments on, man, and I'll just give people a minute to come in. Um, and I didn't mean to counter program my boys, Hispanics Causing Panic Tonight, HCP. Go check them out, by the way, D Style and G Funky. But had to get this time constraint tonight, had to get this out right now. So I wanted to drop this video about Manny Pacquiao in the Errol Spence fight because of things I've been seeing underneath my videos about Manny Pacquiao in the Errol Spence fight. Because I've dropped one or two videos about the fight, and I see this continued theme with the Pacquiao, let's call them haters, because there's a difference between haters and just the your regular guy, random guy who can give a good take, still criticize the fighter, but give a good take. But there are just people who just come on just to criticize. And I see a lot of that with the Pacquiao haters. And it's like that with every fighter. Every fighter has their haters. Pacquiao has his. But one of the things I saw with this video, because I dropped a video saying Manny Pacquiao is a living legend, excited about the fight. And this is great, man. This is great for a guy to continue to challenge himself. And this isn't Roy Jones late in his career. And I was a big Roy Jones fan, but I kept saying, man, Roy, retire, Roy, please retire. Because it was clear he was fighting average opposition and he just kept getting destroyed and destroyed and destroyed. And when he did win a fight, he would look lackluster in a win. This isn't that. This is a guy who just beat a top welterweight in Keith Thurman. And then he's coming off of a long layoff. A lot of guys coming off of long layoffs because of the shutdowns and whatnot. And he's fighting another top welterweight, the top welterweight in Errol Spence in his prime. Another top welterweight in his prime. And he's coming off of a 25-year career at this point. That's a quarter of a century where he's already been in multiple wars, multiple legacy fights. All right, so the reason I dropped this video with this title, Manny Pacquiao already won, even if he loses to Errol Spence. It's not to troll. It's not to get people's attention. And yes, this is right. This is a legacy fight. And Manny has many of them. Many. And more on that in a minute. But the reason I say it is, and I don't want to come off as an after-school special. I don't want to come off as a participation trophy guy. Like, oh, Calix, even if he loses, he wins. Okay. Participation trophy. That type of thing. It's not that. They don't understand. They're dropping these comments below saying, you're just going to make excuses for him if he's 42, 43 years old. If he loses the fight, that he's just old. That's why he lost the fight. They clearly do not understand what's happening here is we're not going to say if he loses the fight, he's 42, 43 years old. That's why he lost the fight. That's not what it is. What we're saying is he continues to test himself. All right. Not too many fighters, if any, in this modern era are going to continue to do this. Chocolatito, guys like that. And I've named multiple fighters over the past 10, 15, 20 years that I've respected that way. Pernell Whitaker was that type of guy in the 90s. You got plenty of them. Chocolatito. Canelo's doing it right now, fighting 4 or 5 times a year, trying to become undisputed in his division. We have to show respect for these guys who do these things if we want the sport of boxing to be better. We can't reward guys who are fighting our average opposition once or twice a year. Every once in a while they step up if we want the sport to be better. So when I say Manny Pacquiao wins this, regardless of even if he loses, what I mean by that is he's making the sport better. He's leaving a legacy for the guys behind him, just like these guys did. This guy lost fights. This guy lost fights. This guy lost fights. This guy lost fights. And if you don't know who these people are, these are 4 kings. All lost fights. Multiple L's on this poster right here. But what do you have? You have guys who left legacies. You have guys who paved the way. They paved the path. And this isn't just about boxing. In life, we all need to lead a path, right? We need to make it better for the people coming behind us. We need to learn from the people who came before us. These guys all did that. This guy lost fights. No mas. That guy. Guess what? Legend. This guy lost his last fight, supposedly. Guess what? Legend. This guy was knocked out by this guy. Guess what? Legend. This guy lost. Guess what? Legend. And I'm not saying there were, some negotiations that went on too long and this guy asked for a catch weight when he didn't. I'm not saying any of that. What I'm saying is these guys fought multiple legacy fights early in their careers, middle of their careers, late in their careers especially. All four fought legacy fights late in their careers. You think this guy, and I hate to keep bringing this up, but I have to, all right? Because they're separated for eternity. You think this guy would have fought Logan Paul? What about him? Him? He would have fought Logan Paul? Him? Look, man, I'm glad you're getting your bag. But guess what? This guy would have fought Errol Spence all day. And that's why they're cut from that cloth. And that's why they're all on an all-time pound-for-pound list. All four. Multiple L's. They didn't worry about the O must go. The O must not go. They weren't worried about that. They wanted to fight the best, and they did. That's what that is. And that's what I mean by, even though this guy lost to this guy, he still won. He was in one of the greatest fights of all time with this guy. They'll forever be connected. Forever. In one of the greatest fights of all time. He lost the fight, but guess what? He laid it all out there. He fell on the canvas with nothing left to give, but he laid it all out there. This guy lost to this guy in his last fight. Guess what? Gave it his all. Gave it his all. Nobody worries about the L. Disputed fight. Legacy fight. All-time great. All-time great. This guy said no mas to this guy. All-time great. Still an all-time great. Left it all out there, and they fought each other. They fought, is the point. This was no Sun Tzu type thing. Look, man, I'm a fan of the art of war, but not a fan of you have to put yourself beyond defeat before you step on the battlefield. Manny Pacquiao is not worried about putting himself beyond defeat before he steps in the ring with Errol Spence. He says, look, man, I still want to be an active fighter. I still want to be a top welterweight. If I'm a top welterweight, I have to fight the top welterweight to get there. 42 and a half years old, doesn't matter. I still got to do it. If I want to look in the mirror, want to be an active fighter at welterweight, I got to fight the top welterweight. And I believe him now when he said he wanted to fight Terrence Crawford. Now I believe it because he came back. That fight fell through. He goes out right after the other top guy, Errol Spence Jr. I believe it. So when this guy at 147 is complaining about not being able to fight this guy because he don't want to cross the street, and then this promoter and that promoter, 60-40, 70-30, 80-20, it's not a 50-50. Manny says, I'm fighting the top welterweight. Do I have to read the resume again? And you know when you come to my channel what I'm about. I want the best guys to fight the best guys. And if not, I want entertaining fights. I work hard. I want to crack open my beer on Saturday night and watch a great fight. Or watch two great fighters go at it. Or watch two good fighters go at it. Two average fighters go at it. Doesn't matter. I want to see even opposition fight each other. I want to see top opposition fight each other. So that's why I come on this channel all the time and preach about rewarding the fighters who take risks. Reward the fighters who take risks. Don't reward the guy who looks great. Oh, he looks great. Who's he fought? He looks great. He passes the eye test with flying colors, man. He's getting the bag. He's making 5, 6 million, 2 million to fight Joe Blow, who just came off of an Uber shift. He passed the eye test with flying colors. Reward the fighters who take risks. And that's how we get the best fights. Respect guys like this. Show respect. Show respect for the ones who are warriors. And that's why I say even if Manny loses this fight, he wins. Because he's laying it out for the fighters that come behind him and saying, this is how you behave as a fighter. This is how you become a great ambassador for the sport. Same thing Canelo's doing right now. Canelo is showing them the blueprint, the active fighters. He's showing them the blueprint. This is how you become pound for pound. You continue to get better each fight. You stay active, fight 3, 4, 5 times a year. Canelo might fight 5 times in 12 months. And he's fighting the top guys in his division. Reward fighters who do that. And those guys, in my book, are winners. All right? And that's the thing with Manny. Like, it's this. He has an organic following that he has built brick for brick over 2 decades. Right? And you can't separate truly great fighters from their fan base. Only that fighter can. So you can try to throw out all these defamatory things. Oh, Manny's this, Manny's that. He's on PEDs. Oh, he lost to Floyd. He's not undefeated. You can say all these things, but guess what? His fan base is still there because nobody else can separate Manny from his fan base. Only Manny can separate Manny from his fan base. And he can only do that by acting out of character. And he hasn't done that throughout his career. He hasn't done that. And this is a good comment right here. He has nothing to lose but more to gain, win or lose. That is exactly what I'm trying to say. He can only add to his legacy at this point. And I want to contrast that with Roy Jones. Once again, I was a huge Roy Jones fan. But my issue with Roy late in his career is he continued to fight clearly when he had nothing left and he was losing to average opposition. Manny is not that at this point. Manny just beat a top welterweight in Keith Thurman. Right? So he's still there. He's still a top welterweight. He can only add to his legacy now. And this is a legacy fight. This isn't average opposition. This is the top 2 or 3 pound for pound guy in Errol Spence Jr. I would argue number 2 that he's facing right now. So if Manny wins this fight, watch him catapult up the pound for pound, historical pound for pound list. Historical pound for pound list. Not the current pound for pound list, the historical pound for pound list. All time. But either way, man, just a phenomenal. And boxing needed this injection right now. It needed it. There was a lot of negativity going on. Obviously, the shutdowns in 2020, there were no real fights. And then you have all these fighters who don't want to go for greatness, who aren't active. We need the OGs in the sport like Manny Pacquiao to come along and say, this is how you do it. This is how you do it. I remember being on here about 2 months ago, speaking with my good friend Big Tree. He was on here co-hosting with me, and we talked about it, and we both said if the Crawford fight isn't made, then you could see him fight probably Mikey Garcia or Danny Garcia in both decent fights against decent guys, but nothing to get people too excited. But never did we imagine the Errol Spence fight happening. Never. And here it is. Manny gives it to us. Just beautiful, man. Just beautiful. I don't know how to answer this, to be honest. My wife being Asian, I've even asked her about this, and she's not a boxing fan, so she can't even answer that. But, I don't know. I don't know, man. I don't know if that's it. But to be honest, the hatred of Manny Pacquiao, that's a small percentage. It really is. The people I'm addressing right now, it's a small percentage. So I'm not really addressing in total in this video the Manny Pacquiao haters. That's a small percentage. It really is. Really a small percentage. What I'm addressing here is totality of boxing fans is, boxing fans always complain about wanting better fights and better fighters and more legacy fights, but they don't reward the fighters who are going for greatness. They reward mediocrity all too often. They'll reward guys on the pound for pound list and whatnot for fighting average opposition and looking great doing it. And I want to address those people more so than Manny Pacquiao. It all ties in together, to be honest. All these fighters who just want to keep their O on their record, want to get paid big money doing it. It's great to see throwback fighters like this, Manny, and that's why Manny translates better to the historical pound for pound list. We've all seen the top 100 pound for pound all time. We're talking about all time pound for pound list. Manny translates better to those lists than any fighter of this generation. Point blank, period. You have some other fighters who are cut from that cloth who will be speaking about in those terms years from now, Canelo being one of them. I mean, Canelo's a guy almost 60 fights in at this point, maybe 60 fights in. So he has a lot of fights under his belt. He's very active. He's going for legacy. Clearly, he's a guy who is very concerned with his legacy. So Canelo's cut from that cloth. Chocolatito's cut from that cloth. Juan Manuel Marquez, another guy cut from that cloth. So you have guys from our generation cut from that cloth. But Manny, more so than anybody, fits that description of a guy who top 100 pound for pound is on that list. Because you can look back and say, and look, I know there are a lot of weight classes now. So eight division champ, how does that translate to fighters like a Henry Armstrong or something like that, 3 or 4 weight champion, Sugar Ray Robinson. So it's still tough in terms of that, but you can still compare him better and contrast him better with fighters of previous generations because of the amount of fights he's had, because of the amount of legacy fights he's had. I mean, let's read them off again, right? I mean, he's fighting Errol Spence Jr. at 42 years old. He just fought Keith Thurman, Adrian Broner, Lucas Matisse. The Jeff Horn loss, he didn't lose that fight. We all know that. Jesse Vargas, he fought Timothy Bradley 3 times. 3 times. Mayweather, Algieri, Brandon Rios, Juan Manuel Marquez, 4 times. 4 times. So I mentioned Juan Manuel Marquez. He's another guy who would be on a poster like this. All right? He fought him 4 times. Another guy who translates to previous eras because of the amount of fights he's fought, because of the amount of meaningful fights he's fought. Fought him 4 times. Shane Mosley, Margarito, Clottey, Cotto, Hatton, De La Hoya, David Diaz, Barrera, twice. Solis, Morales, 3 times. And the list goes on. What is there not to like about this guy? This is it right here. Pac-Man is a living legend. That he is. That he is. We can debate about this. Is he the GOAT? Is he not the GOAT? Look, it's tough to, when we say GOAT, man, it's tough to compare and contrast fighters from different eras. So Sugar Ray Robinson, Muhammad Ali, the list goes on. Joe Louis, Jack Johnson, Jack Dempsey. I mean, we can go on and on and on. You can throw out the 4 guys on here. And it's good to compare. These are good guys to compare and contrast with as well. How would Manny fare against these guys? How would Mayweather fare against these guys? But what I'm saying ultimately, man, is My whole point with this video is I don't want to sound like an after school special. Even if Manny loses, he wins. I don't believe in participation trophies, any of that. But what I mean is, going back to this poster, is this guy lost fights. This guy lost fights. This guy lost fights. This guy lost fights. And they're all on a poster like this with each other because they're legends, because they fought each other, because they fought top competition. Right? You understand what I'm putting down here? It's not so much the wins and losses, it's how many of these legacy fights have you fought? And of course, you have to win some. And Manny has done that. And he's fighting another one here. But he's won so much, he's built up so much credit that even if he loses this one, look at what he's done. Look at the legacy that he's left. And you look, let's go 20 years from now, the next generation. Will there be another Manny Pacquiao? Just like, will there be another Canelo Alvarez? Will there be another Chocolatito? These guys who are cut from the old school throwback cloth, who are cut from this cloth. How many of these guys will be walking around 20 years from now? Manny is trying to show these guys the way. And look, he's getting paid well to do it. So I'm sure there's personal interest in this as well. But look at the legacy he's leaving to this next generation. He's leaving it better than when he came, right? Even if you're great, like I throw this out with LeBron James all the time. I think LeBron James is an unbelievable basketball player. One of the top 2-3 I've seen in the past 25, 30 years since I've been watching basketball. But has he left the game better than it was 10, 15 years from now? That's a different question. Did Floyd Mayweather leave the sport of boxing better than when he found it 20 years ago, 25 years ago? That's a whole different question. We're not talking about just greatness. We're talking about the legacy you left. We're not talking about talent. We're not talking about 51-0 or whatever it is. Calzaghe, 46-0. It's a different ball game when you're fighting top guy after top guy after top guy after top guy after top guy, top guy, top guy, top guy that's available to you. It's a different ball game when you start off all the way down at, say, minimum weight. And you got to climb and climb and climb and climb this weight class to this weight class and this weight class. And then you got to beat these guys because you come from a part of the world that not so many people over here see. All right. So you got to climb the ranks. Then you got to get noticed. And then you got to come over here. And then you got to win, say, a mandatory fight. And then you got to win another one. And then you got to win another one just to get to that fight, to get noticed in front of, say, HBO. And then you win that fight. And then the ball gets rolling. And then it's about not just getting to where, let's say, your top 20 pound for pound, where Josh Taylor is right now, say. Josh Taylor just became undisputed, won a big fight, won a couple big fights. Is he going to stay there? You know, Manny was at that point at one time, and then he kept winning and winning and winning. And even when he lost, say to Morales, came back, avenged that. Even when he had tough fights with Marquez, another one, fought him 4 times. I mean, just an incredible career that I'm baffled, really baffled by how some people don't see that. But just to wrap this thing up, man, look, and this is another one. Guys like this respect a Manny Pacquiao. You know, guys cut from this cloth respect a Manny Pacquiao. You know what I mean? A huge change and loss to boxing, believe me. And I believe you. I believe you. We need to treasure these guys when they're around. We need to treasure them when they're around. It's the same thing I say, even on a much smaller case like a Gennady Golovkin, love him or hate him. when Gennady Golovkin, let's say a Gennady Golovkin comes back, Calix is cut from that cloth. Shout out my boy, Real Spitz. Will Spence get full credit if he wins? Look, man, I'm going to give Spence full credit when he wins. That's not what I'm addressing here, though. I'm addressing Pacquiao. And what I mean by this, even if he loses, he wins. I'm not saying, oh, he's 42 years old, so here are the built-in excuses for Pacquiao. That's not what I'm addressing in this fight. And this is a good question, by the way. NMR 2067 or 20067. It's a good question, and it's a fair question. If Spence wins, does he get full credit? I'll give him full credit. You want to know why I give him full credit? Is he just came off a win against Keith Thurman. So I'm not going to come on here and say, oh, Spence just beat an overaged Pacquiao if he were to beat Pacquiao. Not what I'm going to say. And that's not why this video is titled the way it is. It's not, oh, I have some built-in excuses for Pacquiao here in case he loses. That's not what this is. What this is me saying, look, man, respect these guys. Respect them while they're here. This guy's a legend. Respect him while he's here. He's cut from this cloth. I'll go over it again. Lost. L's. They all had L's. But guess what? They all fought. And this is it right here. My boy, Real Spitz. Sometimes when you lose, you really win, and vice versa, legacy fight. And shout out my man right here. And look, it's a fair question. Will Spence get full credit? He's going to get full credit from me if he does win the fight. But this is a fight right here. And don't count Manny Pacquiao out. Don't count him out. Cherish what's left of Pacquiao. Absolutely. Now, is Pacquiao at 42 what he was at, say, even 32? I think we'd all obviously say no. But you can have that night when you can have glimpses of that. And let's say he has glimpses of that against Spence. And let's say Spence has some issues with the feigning of Manny Pacquiao. Just like he has some issues with the offensive mind of Sean Porter, the night he fought Sean Porter. Let's say he has some issues with Pacquiao's offensive ability and his angles, even at 42 years old. And we got ourselves a fight. And that's another thing, man. Like, let's say it's a barn burner and Pacquiao loses a close fight. Then he really wins. But regardless of what happens, man, show respect for the fighters who fight for legacy consistently, and show respect for the guys who leave the legacy for fighters who come behind them and leave the sport a better place than when they came in. Pick up your trash. Pick up your room. Make it look better than when you came in. Be like these guys. Legends. Legends never die. All right? So even though this guy had L's, he had L's, they all fought each other. He said no mas to this guy. He got laid out by this guy. Guess what? This guy has this guy's respect. This guy has this guy's respect. And all of these guys have this guy's respect. And all these guys should have everybody's respect. And Manny Pacquiao, love him or hate him, for whatever reason, you still have haters out there. Love him or hate him. You got to respect that guy. There will never be another. I'm forever grateful to be able to win. Yeah, there it is. He's cut from that cloth, man. The Tom Brady's, the Michael Jordans, all those guys. Pacquiao's counterpunching skills are underrated. Yeah, but I don't think that's going to be the story here. Pacquiao is going to find a way to win this fight. And make no mistake about it, this is a tough fight. Even though Errol Spence is coming off the car crash, Danny Garcia win is a Danny Garcia win. I've never been high on Danny Garcia. But make no mistake about it, this is a tough fight. A big welterweight, who is well-rounded, who can do everything good. Really everything great in the ring. He can lead, he can counter, he can jab. He's got it all. He can be awkward, but I keep going back to that Sean Porter fight, man. He had some issues with the offensive mind of Sean Porter. And Manny Pacquiao, when he gets offensive minded, when he starts fighting off that front foot, when he starts with the feints, woo! He's going to have moments in this fight where Spence is going to look a little confused, and that's when the fight starts. How's he going to react to that? And I think I saw Errol Spence is a 3.5-1 favorite in this fight starting off. And I expect that to edge out a little bit, but he's going to be the clear betting favorite in this fight. But we'll see. We'll see when the fight heats up. Pac will overwhelm Spence with speed, volume punches, and angles will be shocked. Pac by stoppage. I don't know, man. Spence has big problems with Porter. He won the fight, but you knew Porter was there. He pushed Spence to his limits. Spence, toughest fight to date. Yes. Yes, and that's what I'm saying. Like, if Pacquiao gets offensive-minded in this fight, which I think he will, we got ourselves a fight. And I don't quite understand the people who don't like this fight. And, I think you have some Pacquiao fans who are a little worried about this fight and don't like the fight, think he's biting off more than he can chew. I don't agree with that. And I keep going back to, even if he were to lose this fight, it's another legacy fight under his belt late in his career. Cut from these guys' cloth, the Four Kings. So Pacquiao, man, he continues to add to his legacy. Even if he loses, he wins because he's given fans what they want to see. He's given us another legacy fight. He's given us another glimpse of greatness. Is this Michael Jordan wearing the Washington Wizards jersey, or is this 98 Michael Jordan, who can hit that game-winning shot even late in his career? That's the question here. I'm predicting it a draw or a really close fight either way. I think it'll be a close fight, man. I think it'll be a close fight. So thank you to Mr. Manny Pacquiao. Once again, salute to guys who I enjoy and I cherish in this sport. The guys who lay it on the line. The guys who fight tough competition. These guys who are fighting once a year, like Gary Russell Jr. I saw Gary Russell Jr. once again turn down a fight because I guess fighting once in 2021 was too much for him. He don't want to do that. Gary Russell Jr. has fought like 4 times in the past 5 years. Super talented guys who pass the eye test, who have incredible hand speed and, look at the angles they use and whatnot. What are they doing? Who are they fighting? Who are they fighting? It's easier to look great when you're fighting average opposition and you're only fighting once or twice a year. It's easier to look great when you have that Sun Tzu philosophy of putting yourself beyond defeat before you step in the ring. We don't want to see that. We want to see guys who take chances. We want to see guys who, I don't know, man, it's a tough fight. I don't know if I can win it, but guess what? We're going to do it. Let's do it. So respect these guys, man. Cherish these fighters who do this. Manny Pacquiao, Canelo Alvarez, Chocolatito, just to name a few. Pernell Whitaker, Oscar De La Hoya. Look at all the legends Oscar De La Hoya fought. So we can make fun of Oscar De La Hoya for wearing fishnets and fishnet stockings and all this stuff. Oscar De La Hoya was a dog. Bernard Hopkins for fighting well into his... Bernard Hopkins fought almost to 50 and continued to add to his legacy late in his career. Could Pacquiao become sort of a Bernard Hopkins, a more entertaining Bernard Hopkins late in his career? Could he continue to add to his legacy in that way? All right. That's another interesting analogy. Bernard Hopkins is a guy who continued to climb the all-time pound-for-pound rankings late in his career and gain on guys who were more talented than him, like a Roy Jones Jr., because of the discipline he showed throughout his career and the chances that he took by fighting these guys. Show respect to these guys. The Julio Cesar Chavez's, the Roberto Durans, the Marvin Haglers, the Tommy Hearns, the Sugar Ray Leonards. These guys got here on posters for a reason. And all these guys respect each other. And all these guys fought each other. And all these guys fought tough competition throughout their career, fought legacy fights early, middle, late. I mean, we can break it down again. He lost to this guy. He beat this guy. He arguably beat this guy. he beat this guy. I mean, these guys fought each other, though. And that's my whole point. Even when they lost, they still won ultimately. Because as the years go on and on and on, 30 years from now, who do you think we're going to be talking about when it comes to this era? Manny Pacquiao is going to be the face of this era because of what he's doing once again right here. He's showing it once again. Fighting a fight he didn't need to fight late in his career. He could have fought Logan Paul. He could have fought Jake Paul. He could have fought Ben Askren or Conor McGregor or Nate Robinson. He could have fought a basketball player. He could have fought Andre Berto late in his career. You know? But he didn't. He didn't. He's fighting Keith Thurman and Errol Spence Jr. because that's what legends do. He's the face of this era. Put respect on that man's name. Thank you to everybody who came out. Instagram right there, Calix Boxing 2.0, man. Hit me up on there. Obviously, subscribe to the channel and hit up my boy D-Style Boxing, G-Funky. If you're not, go sub to those channels, man. D-Style Boxing, go sub to G-Funky. And I respect everybody, man, on here who came through. I agree. Manny Pacquiao always give boxing fans a great answer. The truth is boxing sports is still alive and kicking because of Manny Pacquiao. And Manny Pacquiao, like I said, man, we can't just give respect or credit, all credit to one fighter, but he definitely is one of those fighters who left the sport a way better place, much better place than when he came in the door. And that's all you can do in life, man. That's all you can. This isn't just about boxing. That's all you can do in life is leave the place better than when you came. Point blank, period. And to me, the example that Pacquiao is leading by fighting top competition in the 90s, in the 2000s, the 2010s, and the 2010s, the 2020s, and now he's in 2021 and still doing it. That's the legacy to leave. You got to remember, this is a blood sport. This is a tough game. Tough sport. You don't play boxing. So these guys who do this are taking damage on the way. They're taking damage on the way. They're taking risks that other athletes in other sports do not take. You know, this isn't Michael Jordan playing with the Washington Wizards. This isn't Tom Brady playing with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers late in their careers. This isn't Peyton Manning playing with the Denver Broncos. You can go on and on with the sports. This is a fighter. Combat sports. This is a fighter fighting a big welterweight, tough welterweight who can punch, who can do everything, and if he comes on his A game, can make anybody look bad in the ring. And he's doing this at 42 years old. Just to put that in perspective. Anytime you walk in that ring, you can get hurt. You can get damaged. So for a guy 42 and a half years old to do that, who has already been in multiple wars, whose legacy is already cemented, who already belongs on a poster with these guys. Put him up there as the fifth king. Doing it again. Shout out to the Philippines. Much love for the Philippines. Manny's an OG breed. It's rare these days. It is, man. It's rare. He's a dinosaur. Not only, he's a dying breed. And it's tough, man. Like, it's tough as a boxing fan. This is why I get so passionate about doing videos like this. This isn't just coming on here and saying, and we have too much of this, man. We have too much of this on the YTBC. The YouTube boxing community is, let's just break down, fighter A is fighting fighter B this weekend. Who's going to win? There's too much of that because there's too many mediocre fights. There's too many setup fights. There's too many tune-up fights. There's too many inactive fighters. So I get passionate about not showing respect to fighters like this who are cut from this cloth, because one day I fear that fighters like this are going to be gone, completely extinct. And you can call me crazy for that, but I don't know, man. The way we're going, it's possible. How many fighters like this are left? Pac-Man fighting Spence is an OG move. All these Spence fans were calling him a duck and coward, and then he would avoid Spence. They're going to make excuses. If Pac beats him, probably say he's all right. And you know what? It's true. And if you don't believe him, look at all the excuses Deontay Wilder and his fans came up with after the Tyson Fury loss. They'll come up with any kind of excuse if Spence loses this fight. And it's true. He's right. But you just ignore that small percentage of extreme hater sports fans. And that's not who I'm addressing here. I'm just addressing boxing as a whole. It's tough seeing an era of not only boxers but boxing fan that just disturbs me, who don't respect fighters who take risks. And they say they do, but they just don't, by how they rank fighters and how they say every single time a fighter loses, they say the fighter's exposed. I hate it. It happened with Jose Ramirez again this weekend. He lost to Taylor. All of a sudden, Ramirez is exposed. He's not exposed. He lost to a great fighter for all the belts in a true championship fight. We can't continue to throw fighters away just for losing a fight. But the good thing is, historical boxing fans who know the sport still respect guys like this, even though there's multiple L's on this poster. And they'll do that with Manny. Look, history is going to treat Manny Pacquiao well as the years go on. It could be a year from now. Let's say Manny Pacquiao retires next year, 2022, 2025, 2030. His resume, his career as a whole, as we see it, is going to get stronger and stronger. It's going to age better and better and better. And he's going to belong on every top 100 historical all-time pound-for-pound list because of who he is and what he's done with the sport. Man, Calix OG, I remember watching these videos years ago. Homeboy never aged, looked the same, just some gray hair. I got this right here. Funny story, man. Wifey told me. I told Wifey I could get the hair club for men, blacken this up a little bit. She said, no, I like the salt and pepper look. So I was like, all right, I'll keep the salt and pepper look. Got the gray going. Yeah. Not too many wrinkles, though, but got the gray going. Look distinguished. My man Manny Pacquiao is not aging too much, though. Remember, Pacquiao is a Trex, just like what Thurman said, Trex arms. T-Rex, my bad, Trex. T-Rex, he does have those T-Rex arms. And he waves them, man. Thurman got humbled that video where he mocked Pac-Man's. Yeah, he got dropped. Manny is a mercenary, a gladiator, a gunslinger. He is cut from that cloth. Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained? He's Mel Gibson in Braveheart. Is what he is too. He's the gladiator. He's cut from that cloth, man. True gladiator who would have been in the Coliseum fighting with guys like this. Respect those guys. And respect to Manny Pacquiao. Look, man, I'm done for the night. I appreciate everybody coming on. Hit that sub button. Hit the alert button so you know when I'm doing videos. And subscribe to all my boys as well. D-Style Boxing, G-Funky. And hit me up on, let me show that again, on Instagram. Just set up the page so you'll have a lot of content there. Instagram, Calix Boxing 2.0. So hit me up there, man. And I truly appreciate everybody tuning in tonight. Manny Pacquiao, even if he loses, he wins. But we'll see, man. Going to be a great fight. Y'all hit me up. God bless.